Welcome, Jeff from Ottawa Design and Build here again. Today, gonna show you some tips and tricks on doing finished carpentry. For windows, what we have is we got a builder window with the builder jamb. This jamb came to the extent that that's what came with the window. They screwed it in, here you go, unfinished basement. Now it's up to you to finish it. So there's two options. One, we can rip out the jamb that's here, or we can just extend it. So what we're gonna do is just extend it. It's a little simpler production. We don't risk damaging the window. So just gotta start, we gotta clean off a little bit of this extra plastic out of our hair here. Make sure your site is clean, because what we're gonna do is we're gonna install a little bit more of the same 3/4 inch pine. All right, so as long as I can see what's existing, I'm gonna be comfortable that I can install the new one. We have to custom make 4 pieces of trim here, because you can't just buy this standard. You wanna finish right to the surface of the drywall. So what I do is I take something flat across the corner. I'm gonna measure and make a mark of that depth. And here we go. That is 3 3/4. Make your life simple, write it right on the frame. Okay, and that'll be the same mark for that depth on this piece of wood and this one. We're gonna take the same measurement here, and it is the same. And the reason we gotta do all 4 corners, because when the builder installs the window, they're in a hurry. And they're gonna just make sure it fits, it's in relatively the right location. And a lot of guys, especially with basement windows, they put it on an angle so that it helps to drain the water. Don't ask me why. I think the windows are built to drain anyway. But if you get it on a twist, here you go, this one's 3 1/2. Or it's installed crooked this way, it's still gonna look fine from the outside, it's still gonna seal, it's gonna function properly, but you can't finish it by going to the store and just buying wood. And this one's 3 1/2. So reality, if it was all 3 1/2, I could just go buy a piece of 1x4. That's 3 1/2 inches. If I do that now, I'm gonna have this corner over here, I'm gonna have big gaps. It's gonna look like garbage. So what I do is I usually buy a bigger piece of wood, usually like a 1x8, and then I'll just rip all 4 pieces, nail it together, and then I'll have it perfect every time. So what we have here, we have our thickness of our wood. We also need to have the actual dimensions. So we'll take an outside dimension of the window, outside of that jamb to the outside of the jamb is 55 7/8. We're gonna add 1/8 for each side, 56 1/8. Okay, so that what we're gonna have is our pine is going to come just a little bit inside, and it leaves me a place to put caulking, because whenever you're ripping wood down and going from different dimension, you can't use the table saw guide. You're clear cutting by hand, so you're gonna need to add some caulking. So make your new window jamb just a little bit wider than what it is now, and they don't find that very easy. Here, that's an actual 23 1/2. So we're gonna go with by 23 and we'll go 5/8, because I want to keep it flush as I can on the bottom. All right, so now we got our numbers. We're gonna go to the table saw. We're gonna cut all of this lumber down, and then I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna assemble it for you so you can see how to build it and stick it in the hole. All right, so now we've got my lumber cut. I just wanted to show you what I've done is I've marked it all. So I got bottom, top, left and right side. So I'm going to build it like I'm outside the building looking in. Keep that factory clean edge down there. There's the top piece. Okay, right and left, very important. We get that proper. Put the rights and the lefts. Wow, that cuts so good. I can hardly tell which one is which. All right, here we go. And the reason we want to build it like this is because the floor is relatively flat. So all the factory edges will be flat, and that'll be the surface that's on the outside of the drywall where we put the casing. So that keeps all of these elements proper. You can see that when you table saw on an angle, freehand, it's not always perfect. It doesn't matter because we're going to be caulking that joint anyway. So the most important element here is, what does this look like when the casing comes in contact? Square it off, nail all this together. Very important, by the way, when you're using this kind of nailer. I'm using a 2-inch nail. Don't have any fingers or anything within 2 inches of where you're nailing. These things have a tendency of having their own mind and can just fire off at will. You don't want to have a finger there when a nail pops through. Okay. So now we have this. We're just going to make sure that it's nice and square. Trace a mark. Now I'm going to measure for my casing. So I've got inside measurements is 22. I want about an 1/8 top and bottom. We're going to go 22.5. Now you want to add the thickness of your casing times 2. We're using 3.5 inch trim, which is beautiful. So that's 7, so that's 29.5 inches. And then we'll do the same for this side. Check the inside measurement, 54 and 7/8. Now when I'm taking that measurement, I'm adding a little bit, about an 1/8 on each side, so that my casing comes shy of the edge. Again, so that I've got a joint there that I can caulk, has a nice clean finish. Add the 7 inches again, so I'm up to 61 7/8. All right. I love using shims as a notepad. We'll go cut all 4 pieces of trim and come back and install it. Okay, so now we have all of our casings cut. We're gonna take our jamb extension, flip it upside down, and we're gonna nail all this together now. So the reason I'm doing it this way is because walls are incredibly uneven. Even when you frame it yourself and do your own drywall, there's always little imperfections. So what I've found is, if I build something like this first, and then I install it, my joints are always perfect. So what I do is I put the glue on there. Oh, 1 second. Let me get a perfect joint first. Hit the perfect joint. Set it with a nail. All right. Now I always glue my joints first because wood does suffer the effects of expansion and contraction, especially in a window at the outside of the house. So if you put glue on, what you're doing is bonding all of that together so it grows and expands together, and you won't suffer all of that cracking that you usually get with window trim over time. And the reason I try to do this on top of the box is because I've had problems before where I've nailed it all together on against the subfloor, and like I've talked about, those brad nails, they fire off in different directions. They go right into the floor, and then you get stuck to the floor. Or the phone rings and somebody calls and hey, and then the window glues to the floor. Okay. Now I'm gonna Put my window in position. Put my consistent gap. Each end. I'm going to start in this corner. And now I'm going to square off the frame underneath it. Tack it in. So traditionally with this kind of window installation, you build your jamb, you install the jamb, you shim around, you nail it all in place, then you add the casing. But the reason I like doing this is quick and simple. No one's ever going to be crawling out of this window. And so I'm just going to build up my shim pack now on each side. When I stick my window in place, it's going to sit on this. My gap should be perfect. And then I can just nail it all in place all at one time. Here we go. Let's see if we know what we're doing. Well, I'm pretty damn pleased with that, Max. I don't know about you. Using 2-inch nails, that fires right through the shims and into my 2x4 wall. So we're going to trim off that little bit of plastic that's sticking out. All you've got to do now is take your caulking gun, caulk your gap, fill your nail holes, caulk your edges, and then paint. If you're enjoying these videos, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, but most importantly, comment on the videos. By all means, or a suggestion of video you'd like to see, let us know. We'd love to be in touch.